Hi, this is one of a series of videos organised by Quench Arts as part of their bite-sized training. They are introductions to the various aspects of being a music leader. This one is about session monitoring and reporting. And the very first thing to say is don't think because it's monitoring and reporting that you just leave it to the end. The most important thing is to get thinking about it before you even start on your delivery. The second thing to say is don't think of it as a kind of unimportant extra. This really, if you can just do the monitoring and reporting as needed and get it right, not spending ages on it, but getting the data and the information that's needed to the people that have funding or paying for your sessions, then that will really stand you in good stead, and you're more likely to get future work if you can get your reporting right. So it does matter. So there may be details in your contract of what is expected. If not, ask. Don't go into delivering a session not knowing what evaluation you need to do. Not least if you're being offered some work and you haven't been told about the reporting that's needed. You don't know how long it will take, so you don't know what the fee that you're being offered might seem like an immensely generous fee. If they want you to spend hours and hours and hours doing detailed reporting, then the fee might not be quite as wonderful as you think, and you want to know that up front and negotiate on the fee if necessary. The first purpose of it is actually very simple, and everyone should do that, whatever's in the contract. Session by session, you need to check how things are going, how your participants are responding, and that you need to adjust your plans to address any issues that come up. So that's just a lot of people do that without thinking, but don't forget about it. That matters. And I would strongly recommend, and I talked about these in the notes for other things, that you do some reflection notes, that you actually write stuff down or dictate it or whatever works for you about how a session went. And it's quite good to do it as soon as possible after a session's finished, and then you can go back and look at it again when you're planning the next session. So when you're doing that, so if you do that, that will provide the information that you, quite a lot of the information you might need at the end, and it will jog your memory. And there's a lot of other good reasons why you want to do that session by session reflection. Not least if something didn't go very well one week, you want to make sure that you've thought out how to deal with the problem before you turn up the next week, assuming it's weekly sessions. So before you start your whole series of sessions or whatever you're doing, think about what evidence you will need, what you're being asked for by your funder or by your contracting organisation, and how you could gather it. So evidence can include recording, videos, photos, evaluation forms, your reflections, interviews with participants or staff in the setting. So some of the best monitoring and reporting information I've seen from my own sessions, and from particularly from sessions where I've been the manager, as being where someone's managed to get an interview on video with a participant or with a member of staff. If you've got the head teacher of where you've been working, or some senior person in the organisation you've been working for, if you're in a hospital setting or something like that, a charge nurse or so, saying how wonderful your sessions are, that speaks far more loudly than you telling everyone how wonderful your sessions are. If you've got participants saying what impact that's had on them directly to camera, then that's going to have great impact and save you loads of writing, because it's much stronger evidence. So worth thinking about that in advance, because you might need permissions and those might take time to sort out, and you need to plan any redaction. So quite a lot of settings people won't want the information of the name of the individual to be identifiable. So any devices you use to video or things like that, you have to make absolutely sure that they're secure, even if it's just your written notes. You can't do it on a phone that might get stolen and then broken into. It needs to be encrypted and secure. A lot of schools and health settings will not allow you to take photos or videos on your own device. They insist that you use one belonging to that setting. They're mostly okay with audio recordings, but you must check, because you can get in deep trouble if you've not got that right. So again, if you've got to get students or staff to record the video or photos, and then you've got to get copies of it, that takes quite a lot more planning. So think about it at the beginning. If you, lots of schools, I work in primary schools, and they've all got iPads. Half the iPads are flat and not charged. Either that, or they're nearly flat and they wipe out, and they run out of battery before you finish recording. So check that. And also, they're kept in a pool, they're kept in a cupboard or storage space where they plug in, and you can do some lovely work on an iPad. Think, I'll go and get that next week, and find some other child's wiped it, or you can't find the iPad, someone else is using it. So again, plan in advance what's going to happen to that data, how it can be backed up, etc. These things take a bit of effort, but if you've got that material, it's gold, and it really shows that you've people have responded to what you're doing. Now, if when you applied for the work or whatever, there was stated program outcomes, or in your contract, you need to think and involve your manager in this, or partners that you're working with. How will you know if those outcomes have been achieved? And this may often need to be communicated to third parties. So a funder may have paid for this work, and they want to know, have the outcomes been achieved? And the setting where you're working, they may really value this evidence. They want to know what are the outcomes, what have children, young people, or other participants, what's come out of it for them. So the information you gather like this, you use it as you go along, support your planning, and to build confidence and enthusiasm participants. It's really important to remember that what you teach people and what they learn is not necessarily the same thing. You can sit there and spout, I can spout all about this monitoring and reporting. Which bits of it will you actually remember? What will you actually act on? What learning will you as an individual take out of my wittering away now? What you take away isn't the same as I'm thinking in my head about what you ought to know. Hopefully it's close, but I have no control over that, or little control. So your core information that you've got is your session by session reflection, and that's valuable. If in your reflection there's things that are difficult, talk with your manager up front. Don't worry if your notes are imperfect, you can always edit and tidy it later. Just get them down. And you may not be allowed to take photos or even audio recordings home. Again, get your manager to help with its negotiations. So that's all up front, and then when it's going, at the end of the program of work, or at the end of a term of work or whatever, if you've planned it well and gathered information as you went along, this should be fairly straightforward. So recordings and video of any musical outcome, performance recording, that can be really valuable. Now, if you're doing a performance at a show or something at the end of a series of work, I really recommend don't depend on yourself unless you're absolutely brilliant and you've done this loads of times and you're confident. Just get someone else to do the recording, and someone you can trust and rely on, because if you're organising a bunch of kids to perform, you can't have half your attention on making sure you get a good recording, and this can be pretty tricky. Do plan it. It's gone wrong for me quite a few times, usually because I trusted some kid to do it and the battery went flat on the iPad or something. But maybe you get two different people to record it, so hopefully both batteries don't go flat. Plan it. So evaluation forms that can be useful. Your manager may well provide them. If you need to create them yourself, you need to think about the wording. And I've found over the years you actually learn what questions get a good response out from people. It's not always obvious or straightforward to get the right answer. You don't want a load of questions that have people just putting yes, no, of course. Yeah, you want to draw out a bit more information if you can. And if evaluation forms an important part of your evidence, don't just give them out at the last minute and say give them to your teacher next week, because the chances of you getting them is pretty low. Even grown-up adults, lock the doors, don't let them out the building till you've got the evaluation forms if they're important. And to be fair, give them time. Don't wait. Do it. Allow in your plan for your last session time for that. Get those and then do something fun at the end maybe. And those videoed interviews with staff and participants are wonderful. And you have to give time to doing it, and you have to get permission. So the reporting at the end is almost always a condition of funding. Your manager may be under pressure to get it done quickly. Work with your manager. Good prompt reporting is very popular with managers. If you want to really wind your manager up and make sure they don't ask you to do any more work, then leave them to chase you for months for the end of session reporting. It will drive them mad, and they're usually overworked, and they just really haven't got time to chase things up over and over again. But they've got to have it, otherwise the funder won't give them any more money. It's usually far less painful to get on with the writing down of any final report as soon as possible. Do it roughly. Audio dictate, just video yourself, whatever works for you. Get the stuff down. If you've got it down, you can tidy up, you can edit it. But don't just put it up thinking, oh, this is a big job. I know, I've done it myself. And it gets worse the longer you leave it. Then you can't remember what happened. And there's really important to be honest. So if things have gone wrong, if there have been difficulties, be honest about this. Discuss with the manager, and then they may want a kind of a spin doctor version that gives the positive stuff. They won't probably want to give you feeling depressed about everything that's gone wrong to the funder. There may be a lot to learn from the stuff about what's ever gone wrong, and then you can report positively these issues, and this was the learning that we've taken forward. So that would be what you'd then report. And don't undervalue your reflections and insight. You were there, you had the intention, you had the passion, you know how your intention and the outcomes compared, you know about the unexpected outcomes that surprise you, report on those as well. And meet the deadlines with time to repair. Time to spare. Meet the deadlines with spare time. A reputation reliability is valuable, and it just reduces stress for you and everyone else. And just a final note, the managers at Quench, because if you're working for them, and I've worked for them for many years, they are brilliant, and they often take the stress on our behalf. They're there getting the funding, keeping the funders happy. It is foolish and rude to abuse how brilliant and helpful they are. And if you're feeling stressed about something, they will support you. But please respect that and communicate. If you're struggling, if you're having a tough time, just let them know. I've had to do it myself. I've struggled myself. They are wonderful and supportive. But do not go silent. That's the most annoying thing as well. And I don't have a perfect record on this. But hopefully I've got a decent record. So I hope you find that encouraging, and that helps you overcome some of your fears about reporting. Do look at the notes, which pretty well I've gone through, so you've got a written record there in those notes. Hope this is useful. Thank you for listening. Bye.